Stop me if you've heard this one before, but the Kansas City Chiefs are going to the AFC Championship game. Guys, I have a few thoughts put together on the game that we saw last night. I had a video after the game, and I will basically be expanding on some of those thoughts here. And throughout the week, I will have more thoughts on the Chiefs. If you finding yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. I've dropped a video every day for about 2 years consecutively, so hopefully every day going forward as well. But we have to talk about the divisional round of the playoffs. The Kansas City Chiefs beating the Houston Texans by the score of 23-14. Uh, Nothing particularly standing out from this game, with the exception of one stat line. And we're going to start with the defense, and we will eventually get to that stat line that is standing out. But yes, we do have to start with the defense. And yes, CJ Stroud threw for 245 yards. And yes, Joe Mixon approached 100 yards. And yes, the Texans had two wide receivers and a tight end, I believe, over the 50-yard receiving mark. And they scored 14 points. Now, if you want to hear the definition of bend but don't break, I imagine it has to do something close to that. Part of this was the Texans had I believe it was a scoring drive. It was their great big drive in the third quarter where they actually ended up gaining over 100 yards. How? Well, because they kept getting sacked. There was a couple penalties, I believe. But the offense, as far as moving forward, gained over 100 yards, and it didn't matter. None of it mattered. The Chiefs had 8 sacks on the day. This is the great big talking point. This is the great big stat line from this game. 8 sacks, 8 times CJ Stroud hit the turf. That is not including hurries. That is not including QB hits. It's just the actual sacks. George Karlaftis led the way with 3. Jamari Connor, Charles Omenihu, FAU, Chris Jones, and Turk Wharton were all in on the action with 1 sack apiece. And guys, if this is the defense that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to get for the next 1 or 2 games, I think the Chiefs really do have a chance. Yes, the Texans had possibly more frightening than the fact that C.J. Stroud had 245 yards passing, more frightening than the fact that Joe Mixon had, I believe it was 88 yards rushing. The Texans had 3 wide receivers go over the 50-yard mark. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, but what it means is that the offense, the Texans' offense, was able to spread the ball around. C.J. Stroud was able to really sort of pick and piece the defense apart. And a lot of that is the third down defense for this team is very, very rough. Not a pretty picture when you're looking at the defensive side of things. That said, the Kansas City Chiefs gave up 14 points. So obviously the third down problems were not too terribly concerning. Obviously, the fact that C.J. Stroud was able to pick apart the defense little by little was not too terribly concerning. I like the fact that Jaylen Watson is back. I've been a long time Jaylen Watson supporter. I have thought that Jaylen Watson was the third best cornerback on the team last season. I thought it was clear and self-evident that he was going to be the number 2 cornerback heading into this season. I don't know where the cornerback controversy came from. Maybe it's real. Maybe it has to do with practice and things like that. Maybe it has to do with motivational factors. I don't know. But the defense does look better with him on the field. Whether I believe he played 35 or 40 snaps in this game. That is not a limited go. So I think we have to imagine that he will be ready for the AFC Championship game as well. He will be able to go in that game, and he is a very critical piece for this Chiefs defense. So I don't think that it is coincidental that with Jalen Watson back, the Chiefs were able to get 8 sacks. No, Jalen Watson didn't get 8 sacks, but it's a matter of beats. How many beats can your cornerback cover up those wide receivers? And I think that when you look at the difference between the sack numbers from this game and the last time the Chiefs and the Texans played, last time the Texans had Tank Dell. That was their number one guy. That was their go-to. Okay, great. Well, Trent McDuffie was on him and still had a pretty decent game. Your number 2 cornerback that last game around was on Nico Collins. That number 2 cornerback was Najee Johnson. So that's a very large disparity from this game where it was Trent McDuffie on Nico Collins, your number 2 cornerback. I haven't looked at the tape, but I imagine for the time that Jalen Watson was on the field, it was Jalen Watson. Now Jalen Watson is matched up on your number 3 running back, or wide receiver. So there's a large disparity between those two things. Moving on to the offense. The offense didn't look the greatest. That is true. I said that there would be no rust involved in this game. Maybe I was wrong. The offense did score 23 points. The offense was able to move just enough. The offense was able to get itself into position. The offense did win a 9-point game in the divisional round of the playoffs. You also have to take into account the fact that, in my opinion, the Texans' defensive line and the Texans' starting corner duo were the best in the playoffs. So, in the playoffs, those things matter more. You're not talking about the rigmarole. You're not talking about the sort of grinded out games in week 14 of the regular season. No, you're talking about everything is on the line. Everything is right now. We're playing big on big. In the playoffs, that's what it's about. It's about matchups. It's about big on big. It's about good on good. And the Kansas City Chiefs went up against good on good with one of the hottest teams in the playoffs. The Texans were, look, the defensive side of the bracket right now is absolutely wild. The Rams having upset the Vikings, and now the fall of the Lions as well from that NFC side of things, and you have the Commanders looking all of a sudden very dynamic. The new age of quarterbacks is here, C.J. Stroud and Jaden Daniels. That is the next school. So the offense needs Kareem Hunt, in my opinion, to be the guy carrying the ball. Kareem Hunt falls forward. That's what this offense needs. The offense needs the guy, maybe he doesn't get 12 yards, but he's getting you 4 every time he touches the ball. Now, that did diminish during the course of the season. He started back very hot when he started back with the Kansas City Chiefs and then kind of fell off. But there's 2 games left. There's 1 game next week, and then should you win that game, you have another bye week. So that would be hopefully enough for Kareem Hunt to get all rested up. Not terribly many carries on the day for Kareem Hunt, but he still had a 5.5-yard average when the first time the Chiefs and the Texans played, he had just a 5-yard average. So being stronger here in Isaiah Pacheco, I think, had a 2.9-yard average that first time. He kicked it up to a 3.6-yard average this time. Now, the wide receivers. Travis Kelce was Travis Kelce. He was, once again, he is risen. He is like a phoenix from the ashes. He came back for the divisional round of the playoffs. Hopefully, there are 2 more games left in that tank. Xavier Worthy, 5 receptions, 45 yards, 9-yard average. Really, really showed out, in my opinion. I think we need to start calling him Spider-Man because of the way that he's able to go up contort his body the way Spider-Man contorted his body and make those catches, not to mention the fact that he's kind of built like Spider-Man, kind of a wiry guy. Plus, there is history with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Spider-Man nickname. If you don't know that, it is my favorite member of the Wu-Tang Clan was nicknamed Spider-Man, played for the Kansas City Chiefs. Very concerning that Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins were both blanked on the day. Now, that's those two big corners. That's those two strong cornerbacks that they have. But Xavier Worthy was able to find a niche. You're trying to tell me that a potential Hall of Famer in DeAndre Hopkins and a guy who could put himself in the Hall of Very Good with Hollywood Brown couldn't find themselves on the receiving end of a single target that was being completed? Both got targets, but none of them were completed. Again, I think that has to do with the good-on-good matchups that you're going to see in the playoffs. I don't think there's anyone still alive that can do that to these wide receivers. Maybe, right? Certainly we have had compounding problems with wide receivers over the past couple of seasons, but I don't think there's anyone that can blank these guys the way that the Texans did left on the roster or left on the potential schedule. Moving on to special teams. I was not planning on talking special teams, but Harrison Butker is back. We had seen him have some hiccups in the giddy-up during the season after he came back from that surgery, but everything seemed to be in functioning order yesterday. That is a good sign, as these types of games often come down to Harrison Butker. How many times have we seen it? But the big note from special teams is Nico Remigio is real. His hands might not be. Okay? Maybe we need to get that man some stickum. We all need to chip in and get Nico Remigio some high-dollar gloves for carrying that football. But he's real. That is, look, he wasn't a UDFA this season. He was a UDFA last season. But he is someone that is still contributing from the classes of UDFA for this team, something that Brett Veach and company have become very, very good at doing, finding guys who contribute through the ranks of the undrafted. The final note that I have here, Matt Araiza looks to be the part of an NFL punter. 43.5 yard average in that game. Never really had the correct opportunity to just boot one. But it appears to me that we have the punter of the future, we have the kick returner of the future, and we have the kicker of the ever more, which is Harrison Butker. That is what I have for this game review from the divisional round of the playoffs. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting a like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week, and I hope to have you back for the next one.